Pastor Jason here. I know you're reading through the book of Ezekiel as part of our reading plan going through the Bible this year. This is part 2 of Ezekiel, and hopefully you'll finish up reading this book. Wanted to show you some things to look for as you're going through it. Remember, Ezekiel's a prophet, he's a priest. He's telling the people, this is why you're in exile. This is why God took you to Babylon, because of your sin and brokenness. You're not following the Lord. You're worshiping other gods. And because of this, you've been taken off into Babylon, into exile. And Ezekiel's with them in exile. Now, a key moment happens in chapter 33. Ezekiel hears back that Jerusalem has been destroyed completely. Burned to the ground. In fact, the temple itself has been destroyed. And for Ezekiel as a priest to hear this, remember, all the worship of the Lord, it revolved around Jerusalem, revolved around the temple, and God had already removed his presence, withdrawn his presence from the temple, and he allowed it now to be destroyed. And it leaves you with all these questions. Well, what about the promises, right? What about the promises to Abraham, the covenant? What about the promises to David? What about this Messiah that was going to come? What about all the other nations that surround us? And they're just as corrupt as Israel is. And so it just leaves you with these questions. Well, when you get into chapter 34 to 39, you start to see some hope. Thank God for hope, right? You see, God's saying the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple is not God's final word for Israel. That he is going to take them out of exile. He's going to actually put his spirit in their hearts. They have a heart problem. And he's saying, I'm going to put my heart, my spirit in your heart to cleanse you, to heal you, so that you can follow me. He's saying there's going to be a new David. Remember, David had died centuries ago. He's saying there's going to be a new David. That's a promise of the Messiah, and that he's going to be this new king over Israel, and he's going to be like a shepherd. He's going to gather the people together and lead them and feed them. And then you get to chapter 40 to 48, last chapters of the book. And Ezekiel gets a picture. He gets a forward glimpse of what's going to happen, like how God's going to fulfill his promises. And he's going to restore Israel. He's going to bring them back into the land. There's going to be a new Jerusalem. There's going to be a new temple. He's going to see God's glory, Yahweh's glory, just dwelling with the people, forgiving them, restoring them. So I know these chapters can be difficult to read, the last 8 chapters of Ezekiel, because Ezekiel's passionate about the temple. He gives you all the measurements of the city, of the temple, and just all this care and detail as you're reading through it. Now, I know there's different interpretations of the end of Ezekiel. Okay, some people take this very literally and say there's actually going to be a new temple, this third temple, right, that's going to be in Jerusalem at some point on the Temple Mount, and Jesus is going to return, take up authority as king in the New Jerusalem at the new temple. The other view takes this more symbolically, including all the architecture and geography as you're going through it. You see this picture of this river that's just rushing out of the temple, even into the Dead Sea. And the Dead Sea, that's the deadest body of water on the planet, is revived, and now all of a sudden all those fish are in it, and so forth. So the bigger reality as you're going through Ezekiel is that God is restoring his promises, and he's taking all this broken, world and making it new again. So whatever interpretation you fall into as you're reading through Ezekiel, remember, God he's fulfilling his promises despite Israel's sin and despite your sin and my sin. God is fulfilling his promises. So the book of Ezekiel, remember, the main theme is the glory of the Lord. We saw he revealed his glory when they were in exile. He saw that he had withdrawn his presence, right? And was bringing judgment. But after dealing with the consequences of sin, that his presence and glory would return. And powerful book, exciting book, also a very complex book. And so I know you're going to learn a lot as you're reading through Ezekiel. Happy reading. We'll see you next time.